Imagine a world where even the smallest flicker of hope is a treasure, a world where hope itself must be hidden away like a secret. Now, picture a woman who defied the Nazis and offered a glimmer of hope in the darkest of times, saving thousands of lives in the process. This is the story of Irena Sendler, a name that was once lost to history, but whose legacy is now a beacon of courage, resilience, and a whole lot of jars. Born in Warsaw, Poland in 1910, Irena Sendler was raised in a household steeped in compassion and social justice. Her father, a doctor, was a man who didn't just treat the ill, he treated the poor and marginalized, often without pay. His dedication to helping others, especially Jewish patients, would leave a lasting imprint on young Irena. Tragically, he succumbed to typhus when she was just 7 years old, but not before imparting a lesson that would guide her through the darkest of times. If you see someone drowning, you must try to save them, even if you cannot swim. Fast forward to 1939. When the Nazis invaded Poland, that lesson would take on a new and terrifying significance. Irena was working as a social worker in Warsaw, and she quickly saw the writing on the wall. The Jewish population was being systematically stripped of their rights, herded into ghettos, and left to starve. But for Irena, standing by was not an option. In 1942, as the situation in Warsaw grew increasingly dire, Irena joined Żegota, the underground Polish resistance organization dedicated to aiding Jews. Irena's codename within Żegota was Jolanta. Many of the children she rescued only learned her real name years after the war. Within Żegota, Irena became the head of the children's division. Working with Żegota not only fueled Irena's determination, but also provided her with the resources and connections necessary to devise daring methods of rescuing children from the ghetto. Armed with a nurse's uniform and a social worker's credentials, she gained special access to the Warsaw Ghetto, ostensibly to conduct inspections for typhus outbreaks. But her true mission was far more daring: to smuggle Jewish children out of the ghetto and save them from almost certain death. The Warsaw Ghetto was a living nightmare, an overcrowded, walled-off section of the city where over 400,000 Jews were imprisoned in just 1.3 square miles. Established by the Nazis in 1940, the ghetto's conditions were inhumane. Food was rationed at starvation levels, disease spread rapidly, and death was a constant champion. Fear of deportation to extermination camps like Treblinka loomed over everyone. And Żegota, the Council for Aid to Jews, in the meantime, was emerging as a beacon of hope, with brave members risking their lives to provide food, medicine, and most importantly, a chance at survival. Irena knew she had to act, and she had to act quickly. Anyways, now the stakes were impossibly high. How do you smuggle children out of a heavily guarded ghetto in the face of relentless persecution? Well, smuggling children out of the ghetto was no small feat, especially under the watchful eyes of Nazi guards. Irena was nothing if not resourceful. Ambulances with hidden compartments became makeshift escape pods, where every bump in the road felt like it could expose their secret cargo. Children were bundled into potato sacks, their small forms hidden among produce, and even carried through sewers, where the stench and darkness were their only allies. Each journey was a nerve-wracking race against time, with Nazi guards just a heartbeat away. Each method had its own risks. One wrong move, one slight suspicion, and the consequences would be fatal. But there was no turning back. Every child smuggled out of the ghetto was not just a logistical challenge, but a leap of faith, a silent prayer that they would not be discovered. The weight of these missions hung heavy on Irena and her team, knowing that one wrong move could mean death, not just for them, but for the children they were trying to save. Looking back, it's almost unimaginable to think of the courage it took to carry out these operations day after day. But for Irena, every life saved was worth the unimaginable risk. Once the children were out of the ghetto, the challenge was far from over. Irena had to find safe havens for the children, places where they could live without fear of discovery. She tirelessly found them homes in orphanages, convents, and with kind Polish families. But there was a crucial element: ensuring these children had a future. Here's where the jars of hope come in. Many of the Polish families who took in these Jewish children were devout Catholics. They often risked their own lives, knowing that harboring Jews was punishable by death. However, Irena meticulously created false Christian identities for each child. But she knew that after the war, reuniting children with their families would be paramount. That's why she never lost sight of the children's true heritage. So with each new identity, Irena also documented the child's real name on a piece of paper. These slips were then carefully sealed in glass jars and buried in a friend's garden. They were symbols of hope, buried in the earth, waiting for the day when the children could be reunited with their families, a testament to her unwavering hope and foresight. In 1943, Irena ran out of luck. The Gestapo, Nazi secret police, caught wind of her activities. What followed was a nightmare: brutal torture, broken bones, and relentless interrogation. They wanted names, locations, anything to break her resolve. But Irena held firm. Despite the intense pain, Irena refused to betray her network or the children. She was in fact sentenced to death. But once again, Żegota came to the rescue. Miraculously, they managed to bribe the guards on the way to her execution at the last minute, sparing Irena's life. The Nazis publicly declared her execution, but she went into hiding, living under a false identity and continuing her resistance work in the shadows. Talking of her secret hideouts during her time in hiding, Irena lived in various safe houses across Warsaw. Each move carried the risk of discovery, but her network was strong and she always found a place to stay. When the war finally ended in 1945, Irena returned to the spot where she had buried her jars. With trembling hands, she unearthed the slips of paper that had been hidden for so long. The children's names, their new identities, and the hope of reuniting them with their families were all preserved within those fragile scraps. Sadly, many of their parents had perished in the Holocaust. But for the survivors, these records were a lifeline, a chance to reconnect with their past and rebuild their lives. And Irena did everything she could to reunite the survivors with any remaining relatives. Well, let me ask, what does Irena's story inspire you to do in the face of adversity? The jars Irena buried were not just lists of names. They also contained detailed records, including dates of birth and locations, which were crucial for later efforts to reunite the children with any surviving family members. Despite her incredible bravery and the lives she saved, Irena's story was largely unknown for many years. The post-war communist government in Poland downplayed the role of the Polish resistance, suppressed stories of the Polish underground, and it wasn't until decades later that her efforts began to receive the recognition they deserved. In 1965, she was honored by Yad Vashem as one of the righteous among the nations, a title given to non-Jews who risked their lives to save Jews during the Holocaust. Irena Sendler's story might have remained a footnote in history, if not for a remarkable turn of events in 1999. In a small town in Kansas, a high school teacher named Norm Conard challenged his students to think outside the box for their year-long National History Day project. 3 curious students, Megan Stewart, Elizabeth Chambers, and Sabrina Coons, stumbled upon a brief news clipping that mentioned an unknown heroine, Irena Sendler. Intrigued by the idea that someone could save 2,500 children during the Holocaust and remain relatively unknown, they dove into a year-long investigation. Their research led them down a path of discovery, uncovering details that had been forgotten or overshadowed by time. The result was a play titled Life in a Jar, which chronicled Irena's incredible acts of bravery. The play was an unexpected success, performed hundreds of times across the United States, Canada, and even in Poland, where it reignited interest in Irena's life. The impact of the students' work didn't stop there. They brought Irena's story to a global audience, eventually meeting her in 2001. Moved by her humility and courage, the students organized a campaign to nominate her for the Nobel Peace Prize. Although she was nominated in 2007, she lost the chance to win due to the prize's criteria requiring recent achievements. Nonetheless, their efforts ensured that Irena Sendler's legacy would live on, inspiring future generations to honor the past and recognize the quiet heroes who changed the world. Irena Sendler passed away in 2008 at the age of 98, but her legacy lives on as a powerful testament to the impact one person can have in the face of unimaginable evil. Despite her heroism, Irena never considered herself a hero. She once said, "Heroes do extraordinary things. What I did was not an extraordinary thing. It was normal." So you see, saving lives was a moral duty for Irena, as instinctive as breathing. Irena Sendler's story is not just a tale of one woman's bravery during one of history's darkest periods. It's a story of hope, of the human spirit's capacity for compassion and courage in the face of overwhelming evil. Through her actions, Irena gave 2,500 children the chance to live, to grow up, and to create families of their own. Each of those children represents a thread in the fabric of history, woven into the larger story of survival, resilience, and the triumph of good over evil. Moreover, Irena's actions during World War II are a powerful reminder of the difference one person can make, even in the face of overwhelming odds. Her story has inspired countless others to stand up against injustice, to help those in need, and to be courageous in the face of danger. The play Life in a Jar continues to be performed, ensuring that Irena's legacy is passed on to future generations. Her life is a testament to the power of individual action, the importance of standing up for what is right, and the enduring strength of the human spirit. As we reflect on Irena Sendler's incredible life, we're reminded of the impact one person can have on the world. In the face of unimaginable darkness, she chose to be a light, and in the end, it was that light preserved in the jars of hope that helped save 2,500 lives. As we close this chapter on Irena's story, let's carry forward her message that even in the darkest times, hope is a treasure worth fighting for.